The massive hall of judgment within the Galactic Council's central chamber fell silent as a single human figure stood before the assembled representatives of over 3,000 species. Ambassador Thomas Rivera, Earth's diplomatic envoy, stood tall despite being physically dwarfed by many of the alien representatives. The chamber's architecture, flowing crystalline structures and pulsing energy fields, emphasized the advanced nature of this governing body that controlled the fate of countless worlds. Supreme Arbiter. Voxnara, a luminous being composed of intertwining light tendrils, spoke in a voice that reverberated through both air and mind simultaneously. The Council has convened this extraordinary session to address Earth's petition to participate in sanctioned galactic conflicts. The human request is unprecedented. A murmur rippled through the chamber, a blend of outrage, fear, and disbelief. From the shadows, a massive figure emerged. General Krantor of the Unified Defense Forces, a hulking reptilian warrior whose scales bore the marks of 100 campaigns. I speak for the military council when I say this petition must be denied, Krantor's voice thundered. The Ban of Sol remains our most sacred prohibition for good reason. He activated a holographic display showing Earth, a seemingly insignificant blue-green world. Do not be deceived by their appearance of fragility. We all know what happened at Proxima Centauri. Ambassador Rivera's voice cut through the chamber with surprising authority. My people have a right to defend themselves and their allies. We've been members of this council for 50 years, yet we alone bear this restriction. The Supreme Arbiter raised a glowing appendage, silencing the growing commotion. Perhaps it is time for the truth to be known beyond the council chambers. Bring forth the historical records. A shimmering data crystal materialized in the center of the chamber, projecting images of devastation and chaos, planets reduced to ash, armadas of warships shattered, and civilizations brought to their knees. This is the legacy of the last time humans were allowed to participate in galactic warfare, Voxnara stated grimly. This is why the Ban of Sol exists. Ambassador Rivera stared in shock. These weren't events from human history he recognized. What is this? The truth your government has been deemed too dangerous to know, Krantor responded coldly. The truth about what humans truly become when unleashed in war. At the prestigious Galactic Academy of Military History on Centaurus Prime, Professor Zalbax began the most controversial lecture in his curriculum. The veteran teacher's exoskeleton clicked softly as he moved to the center of the lecture hall, his compound eyes surveying the diverse class of alien military cadets. Today, he announced, we study the Terran Prohibition, why humans alone among all spacefaring species are banned from participating in sanctioned galactic conflicts. The classroom buzzed with excitement. These future commanders and strategists had been preparing for this legendary lesson their entire academic careers. Silence, Zalbax's voice boomed, his mandibles clicking with authority. This is not entertainment. This is crucial military history. The lights dimmed, and holographic displays showed Earth, a blue-green planet that seemed unremarkable compared to the gas giants and crystalline worlds many students called home. Among the cadets, Mira leaned forward with particular interest. The slender Taurian exchange student had always been fascinated by human culture, though she kept this interest mostly private. Her four-fingered hands moved rapidly, taking notes on her datapad. Professor, called out a voice from the back row. It was Dorn, a member of the technologically superior Arcavian species. His metallic skin reflected the holographic light as he stood. Why waste our time studying primitives? Humans have been contained for centuries. Zalbax fixed his compound eyes on the interrupting student. Cadet Dorn, your species achieved spaceflight only 300 years ago. Humans went from atmospheric flight to landing on their moon in just 66 years. Never mistake restriction for weakness. The professor activated the main historical archive, and the room filled with three-dimensional recreations of human conflicts throughout their pre-contact history. Unlike most spacefaring species, Zalbax continued, humans did not evolve from a primary predator or hive species. They were persistence hunters, not the strongest or fastest, but uniquely capable of adapting, enduring, and outlasting their prey. The displays showed ancient humans with primitive spears, tracking animals across vast distances. This trait manifested in their warfare in ways that galactic military doctrine had never encountered. The images shifted to show human battles through history, from ancient formations to modern conflicts. The alien students watched with a mixture of fascination and horror as the patterns of human warfare unfolded before them. Most species fight wars over resources, territory, or reproductive rights, Zelbax explained. These conflicts follow predictable patterns we can quantify and control. Human warfare involves concepts many species struggle to comprehend: ideology, revenge, and abstract principles. The hologram showed humans fighting vastly superior forces, employing guerrilla tactics, and adapting their strategies in real time. They will accept casualties that would cause most species to surrender immediately, Zelbax continued. They will fight for concepts like freedom or belief, long after resource calculations would dictate withdrawal. Mira raised her hand. Professor, these seem like admirable traits. Determination, adaptability, loyalty to principles. Why are these qualities feared rather than valued? Before Zelbax could answer, Dorn scoffed. Because they're unpredictable and irrational. Galactic warfare is a mathematical discipline. Resources invested versus gains acquired. Humans disrupt the equation. Zelbax nodded. Cadet Dorn isn't entirely wrong. For 10,000 cycles, the Galactic Council has maintained peace through controlled, predictable conflicts. Resources are contested through limited engagements with clear rules and outcomes calculated in advance. The display shifted to show elegant space battles, precise formations exchanging fire according to strict protocols. Then, humans arrived on the galactic stage. The image changed to a chaotic scene. Human ships breaking formation, employing tactics that seemed random and desperate. The Battle of Proxima Centauri, Zelbax intoned gravely, the first and last time humans were permitted to participate in a sanctioned galactic conflict. The students watched as the human fleet, vastly outnumbered, employed strategies no war simulation had predicted, sacrificing ships as diversions, using civilian transport techniques in military applications, and fighting far beyond the point where surrender would be considered rational. The humans didn't just win, Zelbax said. They changed the nature of the conflict itself. When the lights rose again, the classroom remained silent, processing what they had witnessed. For your next assignment, Zelbax announced, I want a detailed analysis of why the Galactic Council maintains the ban of soul, despite humans being valued members in all other aspects of interstellar society. As the class ended, Mira found herself surrounded by curious classmates. Is it true you've actually met humans? Asked Krell, a gaseous entity contained in a hovering environmental suit. My family hosted an Earth diplomat for a trade summit, Mira admitted. They seemed completely normal, nothing like the historical records. Dorn pushed through the group. Of course they seemed normal. They were diplomats, not warriors, but their unpredictability remains encoded in their genetics. You're just repeating propaganda, Mira argued. The prohibition is based on fear and outdated assumptions. Is it? Dorn challenged. Then explain why, after 2 centuries of petitioning, the Council still maintains the ban. Their debate was interrupted by Professor Zelbax's return. The veteran teacher studied the group with interest. Perhaps, he said thoughtfully, you would benefit from more direct research. There are rumors of an illegal combat arena on the edges of controlled space where, despite the prohibition, humans participate in fighting sports against other species. The students fell silent, shocked by the professor's suggestion. Such an operation would be highly illegal, Zelbax continued, but for dedicated students of military history. He left the sentence unfinished. Dorn's metallic features shifted into what passed for a smile in his species. Is this an official assignment, Professor? Officially? Absolutely not. Zelbax turned to leave, then added over his shoulder, but I would be very interested in your findings, purely as academic research, of course. As the professor departed, Mira and Dorn exchanged looks, rivals suddenly united by dangerous curiosity. Well, Mira said, her 4-fingered hand reaching for her communication device, I might know someone who can get us transport to the outer sectors. This is insanity, Dorn muttered, even as his crystalline eyes gleamed with excitement. Exactly what I'd expect from someone who admires humans. Maybe that's why they're banned, Mira replied. Not because they're dangerous, but because their way of thinking is contagious. The Galactic Council's Grand Chamber glowed with the light of 1,000 suns. Representatives from every corner of the known universe sat in rising tiers around a central platform where a lone human woman stood. Dr. Elena Reyes, Earth's first diplomatic representative to the stars, faced the assembled might of galactic civilization with nothing but her wits and a simple datapad. Supreme Chancellor Zorl, a being of pure crystalline energy, hovered at the head of the assembly. Dr. Reyes, your species seeks formal recognition from this council. Yet your civilization has barely achieved interstellar flight. Many members question whether humans are ready. The chamber hummed with murmurs of agreement. A massive reptilian delegate rose from the militant coalition's section. Ambassador Grunn's scales shimmered as he spoke, voice amplified to intimidating levels. Humans have spent their entire history fighting amongst themselves, Grunn proclaimed. Their own historical records document endless wars over resources, territory, and primitive belief systems. Why would we welcome such chaos into our ordered galaxy? The delegates erupted in approval. Dr. Reyes waited, standing perfectly still until the noise subsided. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, but carried to every corner of the chamber without technological assistance. Esteemed delegates, you are absolutely right about our history. The chamber fell silent at this unexpected concession. We have fought countless wars. We have made terrible mistakes. But there is something you should know about humans. She tapped her datapad, and the central holographic display activated, showing Earth from space. We learn from our failures. The display shifted, showing a time-lapse of human history, conflict after conflict, but also the peace treaties, the alliances, the unions of former enemies. Every species in this chamber evolved to survive on their homeworld, Reyes continued. So did we. The difference is that Earth never provided us safety. We had to create it ourselves through cooperation despite our differences. She advanced the display to show humanity's recent achievements, their first steps into space, their environmental restoration projects, their unified government. You fear our capacity for conflict, she acknowledged, but that same intensity drives our diplomacy. Our science, our art. We don't ask you to welcome us despite our history of warfare. We ask you to welcome us because of what that history taught us, that our survival depends on finding common ground with those who seem different. The chamber remained silent as Chancellor. Zorl's crystalline form pulsed with internal light, their species' sign of deep thought. An intriguing perspective, Zorl finally said. But perspective is not proof. How can we trust that humans have truly transcended their warlike nature? Dr. Reyes smiled. Because I came alone and unarmed to a chamber full of beings who could destroy me with a thought, carrying nothing but the truth. In our history, we call that faith in diplomacy. A ripple of something new passed through the chamber, not fear or dismissal, but genuine curiosity. Perhaps, Chancellor Zorl conceded, humanity deserves a closer examination. The transport ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace near Nexus Station. Mira gripped her seat, still unaccustomed to faster-than-light travel despite her academic accomplishments. Beside her, Dorn appeared perfectly comfortable, his metallic skin reflecting the emergency lights that pulsed rhythmically throughout the cabin. Approaching Nexus Station, announced the pilot, a four-armed Quarian whose multiple limbs danced across the controls. Last chance to reconsider this madness. 3 other classmates had joined their unauthorized research expedition. Velox, a swift-moving avian whose species specialized in tactical analysis. Krell, the gaseous entity whose containment suit hummed with complex life support systems. And Taz, a silicon-based life form who communicated through vibrations and light patterns. Professor Zalbax will fail us if we return without evidence, Dorn replied confidently. Besides, this station operates beyond council jurisdiction. The rules are different here, the pilot snorted, a gesture that sent ripples through his face tendrils. Rules? There are no rules on Nexus, only arrangements and consequences. Mira studied the approaching station through the viewport. Unlike the elegant crystalline architecture of Galactic Council facilities, Nexus was a chaotic assemblage of modules, habitats, and repurposed ships welded together over centuries. Energy fields of various colors contained atmospheres suitable for countless species, while transport pods zipped between sections like insects around a hive. "Remember," Mira said to her classmates, "we're here as observers only. Our assignment is to document whether humans participate in combat sports despite the prohibition, not to involve ourselves in illegal activities." Dorn's metallic features shifted into what his species considered a smile, spoken like a true academic. "The real question is whether humans are as dangerous as our historical records claim." The ship docked with a jarring thud. As the airlock cycled, the pilot turned to the students one last time. "I'll wait 24 standard cycles, no longer. If you're not back by then, I'll assume you've joined the station's extensive collection of cautionary tales." He handed Mira a small communication device. "Keep this with you, and don't mention your academy students. Nexus has its own opinions about the Galactic Council and its institutions." The 5 students stepped through the airlock into a world unlike anything they had experienced in their privileged academic lives. The main concourse of Nexus Station assaulted their senses, a chaotic marketplace where species from across the galaxy traded goods of questionable legality. The air was thick with unfamiliar scents and sounds, translation devices struggling to process dozens of languages simultaneously. "How do we find this blood pit in all this chaos?" Velox asked, her feathers ruffling anxiously. "We ask," Mira replied simply, approaching a beverage vendor whose 6 eyes regarded them with immediate suspicion. "Students," the vendor hissed before Mira could speak, "I can smell the Academy's sterilization protocols from here." Mira hesitated, then decided honesty might be their best approach. "We're researching combat sports, specifically venues where humans might participate." The vendor's eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of amusement in their species. "Dangerous research. What makes humans so interesting to academic types? They're the only species banned from galactic warfare," Dorn interjected. "We want to understand why." The vendor leaned closer. 5,000 credits might improve my memory about such matters." Dorn started to object, but Mira quickly transferred the funds from their research account. The vendor's appendages worked beneath the counter, then pushed forward a small data chip. "Section 42, Level 7, Maintenance Corridor C. Follow the red markings. Tell the door guard that Thrix sent you." The vendor's voice dropped lower. "A word of advice: the humans who fight in the pit aren't typical specimens. They're exiles, criminals, or thrill-seekers. Don't judge their entire species by what you see there." As they moved deeper into the station, the corridors grew narrower and more poorly maintained. Environmental systems struggled to maintain compatible atmospheres for the diverse life forms that inhabited this section, creating pockets of fog where temperature gradients collided. "This is absurd," Krell's translated voice emanated from their suit. "We're risking expulsion for what will likely be nothing more than exaggerated tales." "Are you afraid?" Dorn challenged. "Caution is not fear." Taz's light patterns flashed as the translation came through. "This station operates outside council law. If something happens to us here, the Academy will deny all knowledge of our presence." They paused at an intersection marked with faded red symbols. Distant sounds echoed through the metal corridors, the unmistakable noise of a crowd. "We've come this far," Mira said, leading them toward the sound. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that had once been a cargo bay. Now it was transformed into a crude arena, with tiered seating surrounding a central pit. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species crowded the stands, creating a cacophony of sounds that the students' translation devices couldn't begin to process. A massive barrier of energy separated the spectators from the fighting area, a necessary precaution, Mira realized given the variety of environmental needs and the danger of the contests. "This is much larger than I expected," Velox whispered, her sharp eyes scanning the crowd. "How can something this extensive operate without council awareness?" "The council knows," Dorn replied confidently. "They simply choose not to intervene. Controlled outlets for aggression prevent larger conflicts. They found seats near the upper tier, where they could observe without drawing attention. Below, a match was concluding between 2 massive insectoid warriors, their exoskeletons cracking under the force of their blows. "Next match begins in 5 minutes," announced a floating drone in multiple languages. "Special exhibition bout. Kronos champion Draylak versus human challenger Jack." The crowd erupted at the announcement, credits and valuables changing hands as betting intensified. "A human?" Krell's containment suit vibrated with excitement. "What are the odds we'd arrive just in time?" Low enough to be suspicious, Dorn muttered, glancing around. I wonder if Professor Zalbax arranged this. The insectoid victor was removed from the arena, leaving smears of fluorescent fluid on the floor. Cleanup. The Galactic Council's emergency session commenced with a blare of ceremonial horns. The vast circular chamber, hewn from a single asteroid and reinforced with technologies beyond human comprehension, hummed with tension as over 4,000 representatives from across the galaxy took their positions. Captain Marcus Wells stood alone on the central platform, the first human military officer ever permitted to address the full council. Behind him, projected on a massive holographic display, hung the image of Earth, a blue marble that seemed impossibly fragile compared to the power assembled in this room. The council recognizes the human representative, announced High Counselor Jorex, a being composed of interwoven energy strands that pulsed with each word. You may present your emergency petition. Marcus straightened his uniform, acutely aware that every movement was being analyzed by species with sensory capabilities far beyond human norm. The diplomatic briefings had been clear. Show strength without aggression, confidence without arrogance. Honored Council, he began, his voice steady despite the pressure. 3 days ago, the Hive Collective launched an unprovoked attack on humanity's Epsilon colony. 2,000 civilians are dead, another 1,000 missing. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Hive representatives, insectoid, beings whose complex hive mind made them notoriously difficult diplomatic partners, clicked their mandibles in what humans had learned was a sign of disagreement. This is a fabrication, the Hive speaker's translated voice boomed. The humans established their colony in contested space despite clear warnings. Any casualties are the result of their own recklessness. Marcus tapped his control pad, and the display behind him changed to show surveillance footage of the attack. Massive Hive warships descending on a peaceful settlement, weapons firing indiscriminately. The coordinates of Epsilon Colony were submitted to this very council and approved 6 years ago, Marcus countered. This wasn't a territorial dispute, it was a massacre. High Counselor Jorex's energy form dimmed slightly, the equivalent of a concerned frown. Captain Wells, while these images are disturbing, what exactly are you requesting from the Council? Diplomatic censure has already been proposed. Earth requests permission to defend itself, Marcus stated flatly. We petition the Council to temporarily suspend the ban of Sol and allow human forces to engage in defensive operations. The chamber erupted in chaos. Many representatives rose from their seats, their universal translators struggling to keep up with dozens of simultaneous objections. The ban of Sol, the prohibition against human military action beyond their own solar system, had been in place since humanity's first contact with the galactic community. From the military, oversight section, General Drav of the Unified Defense Force stood, his massive reptilian form commanding immediate attention. This is precisely why the ban exists. The first sign of conflict, and humans immediately seek violent solutions. We seek to protect our people, Marcus responded, his composure cracking slightly. The ban forces us to rely on galactic peacekeepers who arrived too late to save Epsilon, because intervention would have violated the very protocols your species agreed to when joining the Council. Drav countered. Humans cannot abide by civilized restrictions. This petition proves it. Marcus looked around the chamber, seeing mostly hostile or fearful expressions. The diplomatic approach was failing. Taking a deep breath, he made a decision that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. Counselors, he said, his voice cutting through the commotion. You fear human warfare because it is unpredictable and adaptive. Those same qualities allowed us to recover something from the Epsilon attack that the Hive never intended us to find. He transmitted a new file to the central system. The holographic display showed a complex molecular structure that rotated slowly above the platform. This is a bioweapon developed in secret by the Hive. Its genetic markers match 16 extinction-level plagues across Council space in the last century, plagues previously classified as natural disasters. The chamber fell silent. The Hive representatives froze in position, a reaction the Council had never witnessed before. Earth doesn't want war, Marcus continued into the stunned silence. But we will not be sacrificed to maintain a peace that exists only on the surface. Lift the ban, allow us to defend our colonies, or we will release this evidence to every species in the galaxy. It was diplomacy, human style, finding leverage where none seemed to exist, and using it not just for protection, but to force the truth into the light. High Counselor Jorix's energy form pulsed rapidly as urgent communications flowed between council leadership. Finally, the ancient being spoke. This session is recessed for emergency deliberation. Captain Wells, you have given this council much to consider. As Marcus was escorted from the chamber, he knew the real battle was just beginning. Humans had spent centuries preparing for this moment, not with weapons but with information, the most powerful force in the galaxy. The combat arena on Nexus Station erupted with sound as the human fighter Jack circled his massive opponent. The Kronos champion Dralak stood nearly 3 times his height, with natural armor plating and redundant muscle systems visible beneath translucent skin. From their position in the upper stands, Mira and her fellow Academy students watched with rapt attention, recording every moment of the illegal match. The size difference is absurd, Dorn commented, his metallic features reflecting the arena lights. The human's bone density alone should make this impossible. Watch his movement, Velox replied, her avian eyes tracking Jack's footwork. He's studying the Kronos fighter's patterns. Below, the match had begun in earnest. Dralak charged forward with shocking speed for his size, massive fists swinging in combinations that would shatter reinforced hull plating. Jack dodged with precise movements, never wasting energy on unnecessary motion. This is consistent with the historical records, Mira noted, fingers flying across her datapad. Human combat emphasizes efficiency and adaptation rather than raw strength. The crowd roared as Dralak cornered Jack against the energy barrier. A massive blow connected, sending the human tumbling across the arena floor. He rose slowly, blood trickling from his mouth. That should have ended the match. Krell's translated voice emerged from their containment suit. Most species would be incapacitated from a direct hit. Jack spat blood onto the arena floor and resumed his fighting stance. Something had changed in his demeanor, a focus and intensity that hadn't been there before. He's gathering data. Taz's light patterns flashed as the translation came through. The human is allowing himself to be hit to study his opponent's attack patterns. What followed confirmed Taz's observation. Jack began to move differently, timing his movements to exploit the tiny gaps in Dralak's attack sequences. Though he landed fewer blows, each strike targeted the same joint connections in the Kronos fighter's armor plating. Cumulative damage strategy, Dorn murmured with reluctant admiration. He can't win with power, so he's creating structural weaknesses. By the 10th minute of the bout, Dralak's movements had become noticeably stiffer on his right side. The crowd sensed the shift in momentum, the betting odds changing rapidly as credits flowed through the arena's financial network. Jack pressed his advantage, delivering a series of precise strikes to the weakened areas. With a sickening crack, one of Dralak's arm plates fractured. The Kronos fighter roared in pain and fury, abandoning his calculated fighting style for pure aggression. This is the critical moment, Mira said, leaning forward. Historical records show that human fighters excel when opponents abandon strategic fighting for emotional responses. The observation proved accurate. Jack slipped past Dralak's wild attacks, using the Kronos fighter's momentum against him. With a move that seemed impossibly fast, he vaulted onto the larger fighter's back and applied pressure to a specific nerve cluster at the base of Dralak's skull. The massive Kronos champion crashed to the ground, temporarily paralyzed but conscious. The arena fell silent for a moment before erupting in chaotic noise, a mixture of cheers, outrage, and disbelief. Victory to the human challenger. The announcement system declared as Jack helped Dralak to his feet in a gesture of respect. Impossible, Dorn muttered. He exploited a neurological vulnerability that isn't in any Academy combat manual. Perhaps that's the point, Mira replied thoughtfully. Human combat doesn't follow established doctrines. As the arena began to clear for the next match, Mira made a decision. We need to speak with him. This is our chance to understand firsthand why humans are considered too unpredictable for galactic warfare. The students made their way through the crowded corridors toward the fighters' preparation area. Security was minimal. Nexus Station operated on the principle that most species were smart enough not to interfere with combat professionals. They found Jack in a small medical bay, applying regenerative gel to his injuries. Up close, he seemed even less impressive, Average height for a human with no obvious genetic or technological enhancements. Academy students, right? He said without looking up. Your environmental suits and data pads give you away. Mira stepped forward. We're conducting research on combat techniques across species. Your match against Dralak was particularly interesting. The immense doors of the Galactic Council's inner chamber parted with a sound like distant thunder. Commander Alexis Novak walked forward with measured steps. Her diplomatic escort, towering crystalline beings with limbs of pure energy, flanking her on either side. The cavernous room stretched before her, its ceiling lost in shadows hundreds of meters. Above, this was humanity's trial. 3,000 representatives from across known space watched from tiered, seating that rose in a perfect circle around the central platform. Some were recognizably humanoid, others defied categorization entirely. Gaseous entities contained in technological shells, hive minds represented by multiple bodies moving in perfect unison, beings of pure light and mathematics. At the far end of the chamber sat the 13, the eldest species who had founded the Galactic Council millennia before humans looked to the stars. Their true forms were hidden behind ornate environmental screens, their voices processed through translation matrices that rendered them in perfect, motionless standard. Humanity stands accused of violating the most sacred principle of galactic law, announced the central voice, a harmonized blend of all 13, the crime of unrestricted warfare. Holographic displays materialized around the chamber, showing footage from the recent conflict at Proxima Centauri. Human ships employing tactics never before seen in organized combat, sacrificing vessels as diversions, using civilian transport techniques as military maneuvers, fighting beyond the point where surrender would be mathematically optimal. The evidence is irrefutable, continued the voice. When faced with the swarm collective's aggression, Earth forces responded with methods that violated 17 different combat protocols. Commander Novak stood perfectly still, allowing the accusations to wash over her. The diplomatic corps had warned her that this hearing was largely ceremonial. The council had already decided humanity's fate. Her presence was a courtesy, nothing more, but humans had never been good at accepting predetermined outcomes. The council recognizes the human representative, the voice finally acknowledged. You may speak in your defense, though it will not alter the judgment. Novak raised her eyes to meet the gaze of 1,000 alien species. Honored Council, I will not defend our tactics at Proxima Centauri. The footage you've shown is accurate. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the chamber. The council had expected denials, justifications, pleas for leniency. Instead, Novak continued, I would like to ask a question of this assembly. When the Swarm Collective attacked our colonies, killing thousands of civilians before any military response, where was the Galactic Council? She tapped the control on her wrist, and the holographic displays changed to show the devastation of human settlements, scenes the council had conspicuously omitted. Our repeated requests for intervention were denied. Our appeals for defensive technology were rejected. When we asked to be included in the collective security agreements that protect every other council member, we were told humans were not yet ready for full integration. Novak walked the perimeter of the platform, making eye contact with representatives from each sector. You left us alone to face an enemy with vastly superior technology. You expected us to die. Instead, we won, using the only tools we had. This justifies nothing, responded the voice. Galactic warfare has operated under established protocols for 50,000 years. These protocols prevent escalation and total war. By ignoring them, humanity threatens the very foundation of galactic peace. Peace? Novak questioned, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. Or control? She activated a final display, a statistical analysis compiled by Earth's finest mathematicians. This data shows that under your protocols, a minor species consistently suffer higher casualties than founding members. Conflicts in resource-rich systems mysteriously last longer than those in barren sectors. The rules of warfare you've established don't prevent suffering, they manage it, directing it away from the powerful. The chamber erupted in objections, but Novak continued, her voice cutting through the chaos. Humanity accepts that our approach to warfare is incompatible with your protocols. We accept that our tactics represent a disruption to the established order. What we don't accept is the pretense that this trial is about peace. She faced the 13 directly. This is about power, and humans have demonstrated a dangerous ability to upset your carefully balanced system. Ban us from your wars if you must, but know this. We recognized your game the moment we saw the rules. As the council deliberated her fate, Novak stood in perfect stillness, a solitary figure representing a species that had just changed the nature of galactic politics forever. The ban of Sol would be implemented, but not for the reasons recorded in official history. Humans weren't too violent for galactic society. They were too perceptive. Jack led the academy, students deeper into the forgotten sections of Nexus Station. The maintenance tunnels grew older and narrower as they descended, eventually opening into a vast chamber that had once been a primary reactor core. The space had been converted into a living area, sparse but functional, with technology from a dozen different civilizations cobbled together in ways that defied conventional engineering. "Welcome to my real home," Jack said, securing the heavy door behind them. "Station security won't look for you here. This section doesn't officially exist anymore." Mira studied the unusual living space with fascination. "You're not just a fighter in the arena." "Fighting pays the bills," Jack replied with a shrug. "But no, that's not my primary occupation." "You're a data broker," Dorn stated flatly, his metallic features reflecting the dim lighting. "These systems are designed for quantum encryption breaking and deep space communication interception." Jack smiled. "Your Arcavian friend is observant. Yes, information is my true business. Specifically, information the Galactic Council doesn't want distributed." He activated a holographic interface that filled the center of the room with data streams and navigational markers. "Your transport has been impounded by station security. They're searching for Academy students, but they don't have your biological signatures yet." "How do we get back to the Academy?" Velox asked, her avian features showing signs of distress. "I have a small ship that can get you to the nearest official transport hub," Jack answered. "But first I promise to introduce you to someone who knows the truth about the ban of Sol." He tapped a sequence into the console, and a hidden door slid open in the far wall. The students followed him into a smaller room filled with medical equipment. At its center floated a suspension tank containing what appeared to be an ancient human. "This is Admiral James Reeves," Jack explained, his voice softening with respect. "One of Earth's representatives at the council session that implemented the ban 200 years ago." Mira gasped. "That's impossible. No human lives that long." "Cryogenic suspension between periods of consciousness," Krell's translated voice suggested. "Theoretically possible, though forbidden by council health protocols." "The Admiral wakes for 1 week each year," Jack confirmed. "The rest of the time he sleeps." It was his choice, a way to witness the long-term consequences of the ban he helped negotiate. The suspension fluid began to drain from the tank as automated systems initiated the revival process. Monitors displayed vital signs strengthening as the ancient human transitioned to consciousness. "You're waking him?" Taz's light patterns flashed rapidly. "That's extremely dangerous at his age." "It's 3 days before his scheduled awakening," Jack replied. "The medical risks are minimal and he'd want to meet you." Academy students asking the right questions about the ban. He's been waiting 2 centuries for this. As the revival process continued, Jack turned to face the students directly. "The historical records you've studied are incomplete by design. The ban of Sol wasn't implemented because humans were too violent or unpredictable for galactic warfare." "Then why?" Mira asked. "Because we were too good at it," came a weak voice from the tank. Admiral Reeves's eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the light. Despite his advanced age and the revival process, his gaze was sharp and alert. The medical systems helped him into a seated position as nutrient feeds supplied his body with necessary compounds. "Academy students," he observed, studying their diverse forms. "Here to learn about the big bad humans and why we're kept out of civilized warfare, I presume?" Dorn stepped forward, his natural skepticism evident in his posture. "If humans were superior at warfare, the historical record would show more victories before the ban. Instead, it shows only the Battle of Proxima Centauri. Because Proxima was the only official conflict we were permitted to join," Reeves replied with a thin smile. "One battle was all it took for the Council to recognize the threat we posed, not to peace but to the established power structure." He gestured weakly, and Jack activated a secure data crystal. Holographic records filled the room, documents, and footage the students had never seen in any Academy archive. The Galactic Council has maintained peace for 50,000 years through a simple system, Reeves explained. Wars are fought according to strict protocols that ensure predictable outcomes. Resources change hands, boundaries shift, but the fundamental power hierarchy remains stable. The Galactic Council's emergency assembly hall glowed with an ominous red light. 3,000 representatives from across known space had been summoned with unprecedented urgency. The colossal chamber, usually a model of order and decorum, buzzed with anxious communication as rumors spread through neural networks and encrypted channels. At the center of the hall stood a lone human woman. Director Lydia Hawkins, head of Earth's Defense Intelligence, wore a simple black uniform without insignia or decoration. She carried no weapons or defensive technology, a calculated gesture of trust that was not lost on the assembled delegates. Grand Arbiter Zell, a being of pure quantum probability, whose form shifted constantly between states of matter, addressed the assembly from the elevated central platform. This emergency session is now convened. Zell's voice resonated through both air and mind simultaneously. For the first time in 12,000 cycles, the Galactic Security Protocol has been activated. Holographic displays materialized around the chamber, showing scenes of devastation at the galaxy's outer rim. Entire systems reduced to debris fields, planetary atmospheres stripped away, spatial anomalies where stable worlds had once existed. The entity we have designated as the Void continues its advance toward populated space, Zell continued. Conventional defense forces have proven ineffective. 23 species have already been rendered extinct. The displays shifted to show the failed military responses, perfectly executed according to established doctrine, mathematically optimal in their deployment, and completely useless against the approaching threat. The Council has exhausted all standard protocols, Zell acknowledged, the admission sending shockwaves through the assembly, which brings us to the human petition. All attention turned to Director Hawkins, who stood perfectly still beneath the scrutiny of thousands of alien minds. For 2 centuries, humans had been banned from participating in galactic warfare, restricted to defensive operations within their own solar system. Now they were offering their services against a threat that defied conventional response. Director Hawkins, you may present Earth's proposal, Zell permitted. Hawkins stepped forward, her movements measured and precise. Honored representatives, Earth does not petition to join your war effort. We petition to lead it. The chamber erupted in objections. Species that had evolved from predators bristled with threat displays. Hive minds pulsed with coordinated outrage. Entities of pure energy flared dangerously. This is absurdity, called out War Commander Vrox of the Unified Defense Forces, his armored exoskeleton clattering as he rose from his seat. Humans have been prohibited from galactic warfare for good reason. Their tactics are unpredictable, chaotic. Precisely why we should lead this response, Hawkins interrupted calmly. The Void cannot be defeated through predictable means. It adapts to established patterns and exploits them. She activated her own data feed, and the holographic displays changed to show the analytical models Earth's defense systems had compiled. Unlike the rigid hierarchical battle plans of the Council forces, the human model shifted constantly, adapting in real time to changing conditions. For 200 years, the Ban of Sol has kept humanity from participating in galactic conflicts, Hawkins continued. During that time, we haven't been idle. We've developed an entirely different approach to warfare, one based on adaptation rather than optimization. War Commander Vrox stepped closer, towering over the human representative. You speak of the very qualities that led to your species being banned. Your tactics at Proxima Centauri violated 17 different combat protocols, and succeeded against overwhelming odds, Hawkins replied. She looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of representatives whose worlds now lay directly in the Void's path. The protocols that govern galactic warfare weren't designed to face extinction-level threats. They were designed to maintain stability and predictable outcomes. She paused, letting the truth sink in. But there is nothing predictable about what's coming. The Void doesn't follow your rules. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't recognize surrender. Sound familiar? The implication was clear. The very qualities that had led to humanity's exclusion from galactic warfare might be exactly what was needed to face this unprecedented threat. Grand Arbiter. Zell's form solidified momentarily. a sign of intense concentration. What exactly are you proposing, Director Hawkins? A joint command structure with human strategic leadership, she answered without hesitation. Earth will share all defensive technologies we've developed outside Council oversight. In return, we require full tactical autonomy. The chamber fell silent at the audacity of the request. For a junior species to demand leadership of the combined forces of the Galactic Council was unprecedented. War Commander Vrox broke the silence with a bellow of rage. This is nothing but opportunism. Humans seek to use our crisis to overturn the ban of Sol permanently. Hawkins didn't flinch. The ban can be reinstated after the crisis if the Council wishes. But right now, you need what only humans can provide: unpredictability, adaptability, and the willingness to try strategies with unknown outcomes. She stepped to the center of the platform, activating one final display. It showed Earth's defensive fleet, ships and weapons the Council had never seen before, designed using principles that defied conventional military doctrine. You banned humans from your wars because we threatened the established order, Hawkins stated plainly. Now the established order is collapsing, and you need precisely what you feared. The only question is whether your fear of humans outweighs your fear of extinction. As the Council deliberated, Hawkins stood unmoving beneath the red emergency lights. The future of both humanity and the galaxy hinged on whether these ancient species could overcome 2 centuries of institutional inertia and accept that sometimes chaos was the only appropriate response to chaos. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Academy of Military History fell silent as Admiral Varix entered, his ceremonial armor gleaming under the crystalline lights. Behind him followed Mira, Dorn, Velox, Krell, and Taz, the 5 students whose unauthorized field research had escalated into a diplomatic incident of historic proportions. More surprising was the figure who entered last, Jack, the human fighter from Nexus Station, now wearing a formal Earth diplomatic uniform. This special assembly is now in session, Admiral Varix announced, his deep voice resonating through the hall. Recent events require us to address certain historical inaccuracies in our curriculum. The assembled students and faculty exchanged confused glances. Rumors had been circulating for days about the 5 students who had disappeared and returned under military escort, but official information had been strictly controlled. These cadets, Varix continued, gesturing to Mira and her companions, undertook an unauthorized investigation into the ban of Sol. Their findings have been verified at the highest levels of the Galactic Council. He activated the central holographic display, showing official documentation bearing the quantum seals of the Council's inner chamber. Effective immediately, all historical records regarding the prohibition on human participation in galactic warfare are being revised. The official narrative that humans were banned due to excessive aggression or lack of civilization was, he paused, seemingly uncomfortable with the admission, a deliberate misrepresentation. Gasps and murmurs filled the hall. Professor Zalbax rose from his seat, his exoskeleton clicking with agitation. Admiral, with all respect, these revisions undermine centuries of military doctrine. The students violated Academy protocols by traveling to Nexus Station and contacting human operatives without authorization. Correct on all counts, Professor, Varix acknowledged. They also discovered the truth that our most respected military historians either missed or deliberately concealed. I believe that merits special consideration. He nodded to Mira, who stepped forward with remarkable confidence for a student addressing the entire academy. Our research confirms that humans weren't banned because they were too violent or unpredictable, she explained. They were banned because their approach to warfare threatened to disrupt the carefully managed system of conflict that has maintained the Council's power structure. For 50,000 years, the holographic display shifted to show the data they had obtained from Admiral Reeves on Nexus Station. Statistical analyses demonstrating how galactic conflicts had followed predictable patterns that consistently benefited founding species at the expense of newer members. Humans introduced adaptive strategies that made outcomes unpredictable, Dorn continued, standing beside Mira. This unpredictability threatened established powers, so they removed humans from the equation and rewrote history to justify it. Admiral Varix raised his hand to quiet the growing commotion. Under normal circumstances, these revelations would be concerning but largely academic. However, circumstances are no longer normal. He activated a secure communication channel, and the holographic display changed to show the devastation at the galaxy's edge, the same footage being presented to the emergency council session. The entity designated as the Void has destroyed 23 species and continues advancing toward council space, Varix explained grimly. Conventional military responses have failed completely.